Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about doctor demographics, where to put a practice. And one of the things I find a little interesting is that people say, where should I go? What's the right place to go? And actually, the first question people should probably think about is, where should you not go? Because not all places are growing equally and as successfully as other places. I want to talk to you today about a specific state in the United States, but please don't assume that my topic is only about that state. What you're going to hear today is some cautionary tales about places that you don't want to go and policies that are making places to practice more and more difficult. So let's kind of get into this as we talk about California in the rearview mirror. And you're going to be a little surprised when I say this. Okay, you have to know I am a Californian, and I got into demographics early on working for my father. He was a developer, and so we would look for places that have potential, how you determine what is likely to happen in the future and what is not likely to happen in the future, because a lot of people, no offense against our realtor friends, but there are an awful lot of people who are realtors who are, in fact, will do anything to get you to buy a site, to lease a property. And some people, not that they're evil intent, but rather sometimes they're a little more, less cautious about what's in your best interest. All right, so let's get into this. I want you to know I'm starting this off, and I'll wrap up with this as well. Now, I'm offering a discount. I do this only a couple of times a year, and it's mainly to reward those people who've stuck with us on our podcasts and webinars. It's going to be a little simpler discount method. So what we're doing is offering a 15% discount on all of our reports and products and services for the next 2 weeks, all of them. And simply enter the word summer to get the discount in the promotional code section. Summer is what you want to put in there. Other discounts may come along in other months, but right now, this is the first time we've offered any discounts because we've been really, really busy. So let me move on. I want you to know I am a proud Californian. Dang it. I grew up in Los Angeles. My father was born in San Francisco. My grandparents moved there in the 1800s. So we've been with California a long time. And we've worked as a family business and developing different locations. So demography is kind of my thing. So I want you to know I love California. And I have to say, what in the world is going on with my state? What is happening in California is going to happen to other places. The reason I'm bringing this up isn't just to warn you about California, but it's rather to look at other sites, and I'll talk about some of those other states in a while, that are showing signs of stress and may portend doom for you. Now, how bad is it? Let's talk about it. Between 2000 and 2020, 2,644,000 people left the state. That does not mean that California is disappearing, but for the first time in history, it's not picking up a congressional seat. So yeah, it is getting a little scary. We'll talk about why, and we'll talk about the warning signs in just a second. But I want you to know this growth is not a one-way ticket, and not all parts of California are shrinking or are disappearing at the same rate either. So we may talk a little bit about that. So just be aware, this is serious. California has a lot of people who are moving into the state, particularly from other countries. Other parts of the United States are not contributing nearly as many people as they used to bring people here. Remember, the reason that people wanted to move to California is there were lots of jobs. This was the land of milk and honey and opportunity. That has been kind of reversed. Now, I left California. I left it about 8 years ago, and frankly, I think it was a smart move, but I did this based upon demographic factors. Should you completely avoid California? No. Are there any other places on earth that are going through this problem? Yes. We'll talk about it specifically. Now, Joel Kotkin and Wendell Cox wrote an article in California Fleeing in July 2021. In the City Journal. Very readable, very interesting. But I want to take the approach of what this means to healthcare. They're very good about population predictions, so I'm going to give them lots of credit. They also publish an article weekly in newgeography.com. Now, the decline in the population is a myth, says the Sacramento Bee. It isn't happening, says the Sacramento Bee. LA Times is pretty much in the same message. Come on, it's not so bad. Now, as a demographer, completely rational, I'm going to tell you, yeah, it's so bad, and there's some other places that are going to be equally bad in the next little while. They said in the B, only the old, the bitter, and the uneducated are leaving. So if there is a definition or an illustration of sour grapes, this is it. But I just want you to know it's not true that the old, bitter, and uneducated are leaving. They're in fact not. What we really are looking at is, well, tax filers between under age 26, the young working public, only represent 4% of California's population. Only 4%. So when someone tells you, no, young people, they're sticking around, the bottom line is it used to be people became adults when they got their first job or got married, and the age typically was about 21 or 22. Right now, people are talking about 35 years of age is when your adulthood really starts. But the patterns of their lives are obviously, these people aren't making that much money, and many of them aren't working. Tax filers between 35 and 44, however, are the lion's share of people who are leaving California. 77% of taxpayers fit within that category, and this represents the largest single group of people who are leaving. Now, this means the middle class is picking up and taking their ball and going home. That's a problem. Now, the big cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Sacramento, that used to be really dependable middle class places are no longer that. So who is staying? Well, if you look at the tax filers between 55 and 74 years of age, I should say, that represents about 21% in California. What I'm saying is it is not the very young and it's not the very old who are picking up. It's the middle class who are leaving California. And it presents a problem for them because the taxes that they draw in have to make up for the loss of population. If the population is not stable or in fact is shrinking, the number of people who are taxpayers goes down. But when the affluent are the ones who are taking off, then it's really scary. Let me explain something real quick. Florida and Texas are the ones that are growing, the biggest states that are growing super fast. And why? It's because they have no state income tax. Therefore, if you are a wealthy person, you kind of go, I don't want to stick around here and pay more to the government. Yeah, the weather may be nice, but is that going to be enough of a benefit to what I want to do? And in fact, it's kind of not. So let me just review real quick. The discounts are coming up. I love California. Lots and lots of people have left. This is not a myth. The Sacramento Bee and a lot of other people are frankly lying to you. That's what I'm really getting at here. Now, if we talk about the top income people, there are some people who say, no, the really rich want to stay in California. The truth is the top exodus income groups in the state of California are the top 4 categories of income. In short, the rich are the first ones looking for the exits. They're getting out of there. The middle class comes next because they're elephant in the python. They're a big group. But all that is being left right now in California are those who are the lower middle class and the lower class. Now, of the 53 U.S. metros by birth rate, in other words, those that are having the most people born, not immigrating, they are last and next to last in population. Now, that is kind of sobering. I can look at any state, by the way, and tell you who is leaving and where they're leaving from. You might remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the United Van Lines and Ryder Truck and also the U-Haul truck databases. They are the ones who are saying, these are the people who are leaving. Here's where they're going. Now, why are the people leaving California? And this gets to the big picture, not just on California, but why people are likely to leave any state right now in the United States. And the number one is housing regulatory approvals are like slow. If you were to be in, let's say, Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, you can get a permit to build a house very, very easily. California, not so much. New York City, good one. Pennsylvania and Ohio are tough too. And so is Illinois. It isn't just the fact that they're not having houses built, but the price of housing is going up because regulations to build homes in these areas is like hitting a headwind. There are zero emission mandates in California and in several other large states that I just mentioned. The problem is this. If you have to have emission standards that are draconian, they're not going to let you have cars. Or better yet, if the cars that exist within Southern California, all or a large majority have to be electrical vehicles, it mandates you having a power coupler in your garage to power up your car. It's impractical to do that outside your house because it often takes many hours to fully energize a car's battery. With that, it just means there's a lot more expense. Also, in these emission mandates, California has initiated a mandate that any new home has to have solar panels. When that first started, they were estimating, it's going to be about $20,000 that adds to the cost of a house. But various counties have increased how much that's going to cost so that it's like, 50% of the down payment used to go to pay for the house. Now it goes to pay for the mandated increases on setting up your home. These mandatory solar panels are not a small problem because California has decided it wants to have no emissions, and it has set up kind of an artificial boundary. Now, I live in Utah. We're next to Arizona and we're next to Nevada. And if somebody is looking for gasoline, they just can pipe it in. California, on the other hand, you can't do that. They require that you have to bring fuel in by boat. Not only is it expensive, but it also slows down the process. Within California, this year, 2021, we're expecting major power outages starting in August. And that is going to be a real barrier, a real problem for people if you're trying to do things a little bit on a budget. So therefore, young families simply cannot afford to be there. Now, how does this compare with other states? Let's do an apples and apples comparison. In the United States, we've had about a 6.1% increase in new housing, and that's taking the whole United States and putting it all together. Some states better, some states worse. Florida, we'll talk about them, but I'll just say that they're all a little different and for different reasons. So California has had a decrease in new home construction of 3.7%. Now, what that does, not only is there not as much housing availability, but the price of housing has gone up because it's expensive. Now, you may assume, wait a second, I'm a doctor. What do I care about that? Well, what you are in the business of, doctor, is you're in the business of people. The more people there are, the more business there is going to be for you. When there are fewer people, there are fewer doctors and less production per population. That's where things get bad. So, all right, California is losing population 3.7%. It's not the worst in the country, but it's pretty serious. Texas, by contrast, has a 9.8% increase in new housing. Florida, 6.3% increase. Now, let me just remind you of something here. Florida is the way Florida is, not because of its taxes, but because it's got a very, very high water table. You cannot build everywhere in Florida. So because of that, the places that you can put homes are smaller. You can't have a basement, for example, in many parts of Florida. That reduces the space available and increases, marginally at least, the cost of housing in Florida. Arizona, by contrast, has a 29.5% annual increase in new housing. That's crazy high. But with so many people fleeing California, where do they want to go? They want to go to Arizona. By the way, Nevada is also doing very well. The majority of people fleeing California are actually heading to Texas. Surprise. Now, Tennessee is an example of a mid-Atlantic state that is showing remarkable increase too. It isn't because there's no income taxes, but just the cost of housing, cost of living in Tennessee is looking pretty darn good. Now, here's California's hope. Am I saying that every location in California is going to die? I'm not. Where should you consider going? Riverside County and San Bernardino counties. These are in Southern California. They are contiguous to Los Angeles. And if you want to find a house that is reasonably affordable, those are the two counties to go to. But the commute times within Riverside County and San Bernardino are getting high. So rather than be able to drive, say, a half an hour to your office, you are now looking at over an hour commute each way, each day. So you're going to have to love where you're living in order to overcome that. So California's hope are these high desert communities. You'll also note, by the way, that there are other counties within the state that are showing a little bit of potential. And I'm going to say I rather like that Riverside is the way it is. Now, you probably all know about Loma Linda. It's not the highest, most expensive medical and dental programs in the country. But the population continues to increase, and it is therefore a place that one can go to school and then eventually settle in the area. It's not so popular in other locations. So, if you're in San Francisco, let's say, and you wanted to go to one of the big schools there, and there are some outstanding schools, it just makes it much more difficult and much more expensive after you get your schooling to go there. Now, here are the danger signs that I wanted to bring up to you so that in the future you can say, is my area, my state, my county expressing danger? Now, here's the thing that I want you to know. A lot of people curse immigration. You've probably seen all kinds of people lined up, ready to come into the country at the southern border. But the fact is, all nations require immigration to grow because the birth rate is not coming up to 2.1 children born per woman. And that's, by the way, the threshold. If you have 2.1 children born per woman, the population remains stable. But in the United States, we're at about 1.6. So we need to have immigrants. There has, in fact, been an immigrant decline in many places. Now, you remember the old days, they used to say, oh my gosh, all the immigrants coming in from California. Well, not as much as they used to be. And part of that is a danger sign. Foreign-born people are an asset to your practice. I'm not saying open the borders. I am just saying fact of life from demographics. Younger residents are smaller than the older residents as a percentage. So when it happens, there are fewer children and the immigrant population is older. It means that there's a bit of a problem. It's a danger sign for setting up a practice. Ideally, you want younger workers to come in, pay taxes, occupy jobs, blue collar, white collar, gray collar jobs. That's what you're after. Now, here's a prediction that's a little startling. By 2036, seniors are going to outnumber those who are under 18 years of age if our current trends remain stable. Everybody talks about how difficult it is in Japan. You've probably heard Japan doesn't have a good birth rate. Well, that is true. But you see, it's just because Japan is getting so old. I love old people. I'm an older person. And the fact is, as those places that we have a large number of seniors, it's primarily because of the lack of children being born. The demand for graduates in white-collar jobs is going to be unmet by 2030. We all talk about, send your kids to college. Yeah, get them a great STEM career. That's wonderful. I love it. But the fact is, there are not going to be enough people in 2030 to take the jobs that are occupied right now. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about 9 years away. And in fact, based on the tables, it may be 8 years. It means that we're going to go through a problem with people taking jobs. Now, California is doing little to change this demographic trajectory. They are kind of being snobby, snooty, high taxes, and they only want the beautiful, rich, and famous. Everybody else, thanks, go find some other place to live. That is going to hurt them. But the attitude is as much going to hurt them as any policy. The governor has decided they don't need people, and that's bad. Now, I just want to make sure you understand something about our discounts for 2021. We are offering them on practice site viability reports. So in other words, if you want to know how good or bad is this area that I'm looking at, the site I've found, tell me, is it good or bad? The best sites report is to help you if you have a large geographic area and you're saying, where are the 5 best sites that I should go in the counties or the area that I want to go to? We can actually pinpoint them on intersections or street addresses. The marketing report is a redundant report to the practice site viability. The only thing it does more is it talks about how to promote the practice using psychographics. And that is, what are you going to have to say in your ads or your messaging? What services should you offer based on the population? And it will tell you if essentially what you should be doing in order to make your practice successful in that particular site. But don't get a marketing report unless you already have a site. If you have a practice site viability or a community overview report, don't do the marketing report. Here's what happens very often. I get people who call me all the time and they'll say, Scott, I just have a question. I want to talk about 2 or 3 places. It happened this morning. I want to look at 2 or 3 locations. Where should I go? Which one is better? Where's the greatest competition ratios? Where am I going to have the best chance to recover the time and investment I've made financially in a location? The telephone consultation can be set up just within a day or 2. I can look up the data, we can talk online, and I can show you some maps and graphs and charts and tell you why this place is better than another. Now, it's true, you don't get a lot of written backup on this, but if you want the answers, that's the place to go. You want to reach us? Dial 833-424-6222. Now, you should probably know we had a little issue with AT&T recently. Anyway, it's all fixed, so the numbers work. Or you can go to see all of our other versions of these podcasts, the articles we've written, samples of the reports are free, and you can even order from drdemographics.com. I want you to know what you're getting, and we are here to make your life easier, and I want to thank you so much for watching. You take care. Bye-bye.